Formula One back in Europe and back on very familiar ground. 18 years at the Circuit de Catalunya, the greatest of those years were when Fernando Alonso ruled the world and the Spanish fans swept him toward the title. He's back at Renault, but he's the victim of a new order in Formula One. This weekend, the adulation will be welcome, but it won't be enough. Because Raikkonen's world title has been followed by further Ferrari success in the opening 3 Grand Prix. Emerging from the pack come BMW, fast, consistent and ready to win. And Alonso, once the irresistible force, is now the immovable object. Or at least that's what Lewis Hamilton discovered in Bahrain 3 weeks ago, as the British hero produced his worst Formula One performance so far. McLaren and Hamilton must start the recovery today. It's qualifying for the Spanish Grand Prix. Yes, the first 3 races of the season have provided us with a great deal of food for thought. But now, the Circuit de Catalunya, venue for so many thousands of miles of Formula One testing over the last few weeks, is this weekend going to give us the hard evidence of who is strong and who is struggling, maybe for the rest of the season to come. So this Spanish Grand Prix, an especially vital weekend for McLaren and for Lewis Hamilton, who, after that victory in the opening race in Australia, has dropped to 3rd in the Drivers' Championship behind Raikkonen and Heidfeld, level on points with Kubica and teammate Kovalainen. Only 4 ahead of the Bahrain winner Massa. This weekend he'll be desperate to halt the slide, starting with qualifying today. And his McLaren team will be keen to regain the kind of consistency that has taken BMW Sauber to the top of the constructors' standings, ahead of Ferrari and McLaren. BMW still looking for their first win, but via Heidfeld or Kubica, they've been on the podium at all 3 races. But now, Mark, with everyone bringing new bits and new developments here to Spain, it feels like the season is starting fresh once again.
It really does, but this is probably the most important part of a race season for everybody down this pit lane, because they've had that 3-week break in between now. All the development's gone on. They roll up here in Spain and we really see what everybody's got to offer. Looks like Ferrari have made some big improvements, even more so than what they had at the last race, and a couple of other teams as well. People like Force India have even stepped up to the plate.
Yes, even with all the hard work that's been going on, that gap to Ferrari will remain, you feel?
Yeah, I think so. I think actually in some ways Ferrari have even taken a little step further forward. BMW look like they're strong, McLaren also look like they've got something to offer, and even people like Red Bull. But again, this is so important now. They've had 3 weeks, they've done a lot of development, a lot of wind tunnel work. Let's see what the end result is.
Exactly how big a weekend is this for McLaren and Lewis?
I think it's a big weekend in many ways. Lewis came off the back of a poor race for him. His standards and his expectations are very high, and he will come back physically and mentally a lot stronger, I'm sure of that. It's down to experience for me. I think that's one of the ones he has to put in his book. But I think also McLaren as well have got a little bit of set-up work to do. They need to be a little bit more focused. But I think, this team got a lot of resource. They can do it.
Well, over the next hour or so, McLaren and everyone else will find out exactly how they rank alongside the opposition. And as Ted Kravitz reports, for Lewis Hamilton, after those problems in Malaysia and Bahrain, he'll be out to show that he can get back to his brilliant best once again.
There was a fair bit of criticism laid at Lewis Hamilton's door after his performance in Bahrain, and his weekend hasn't got off to a particularly good start here in Spain. But all his problems last time out were caused by a tiny mistake in selecting the perfectly legal engine map that the teams use for the start of the race.
Basically, when you stop on the grid, before you actually stop, you have to initiate or press a button which engages the launch sequence, the launch map. And if you do stop, you have 3 seconds to do it. And I had switched it on, but 4 seconds, so I was a second too late, and so it wasn't actually on. So when I did the launch, anti-stall kicked in, and I just had to try and pull away as quick as possible, and so that was really the biggest problem. So but we've covered all areas, making sure that doesn't happen again, and just looking forward to this weekend.
Because apart from that, if you weren't back there, you wouldn't have been in the mix, you wouldn't have had an accident, then you wouldn't have been put on a 1-stop, so the car wouldn't have been so bad.
Well, I realised the reason we were so slow was because I just damaged the car so badly, so there was a few bits missing, which, I was as fast as Force India.
Nowadays, Formula One is just so critical that once you lose one of these deflectors, they are there for a reason. And especially hydrofoil, which is quite a big part, just on a very critical area, which is after the front wing. So his car was poor guy, poor Luis. He drove a car that was very severely damaged.
But even with a healthy McLaren, Heikki Kovalainen was easily relieved of 4th place by Heidfeld's BMW. So why were the cars so slow?
Frankly, as a team, we've gone a little bit the wrong way in the setup of the cars, certainly in races 2 and 3. That's something we hope we've been able to understand better now. and that setup direction was causing us to have a much stronger brake locking issue than we should have had.
This brake issue is key. McLaren winning the first Grand Prix made us forget how much the team had been affected by the FIA's spying investigation. The FIA judged that the brake balance system appears to have been investigated and developed by McLaren as a result of the receipt of confidential Ferrari information. In January, McLaren apologised and promised not to develop that area further. So to what result?
We just have the standard braking system from last year, and we are developing along that route, and it has nothing to do. I think that if you look back, we underperformed for one reason or the other. But at the end of the day, Heikki did the fastest lap of the race in Bahrain. So there's some things that show that our car is quick enough, but we just have to get everything at the right time.
So we can clear that up. What your performance at the moment has nothing to do with what you said you would or wouldn't develop over the winter as part of the whole FIA thing.
Our performance at the moment is a consequence of a whole range of things, but the reality is the dominant one at the moment is I think we were heading in the wrong setup direction. If you looked at, there were a number of times where, frankly, we were braking on three wheels. Well, that's clearly not the best way to stop a car.
I think performance-wise, I think we've got a very strong package. We've just, in the last two races, we've not really, things haven't all come together to really show our true pace and performance. But I think, this weekend we have the opportunity to do it again, and fingers crossed we will.
Well, let's get the view from down here at the Scuderia Ferrari here in Barcelona. I'm with the operations director, Mario Almondo. Mario, are you satisfied that all the business with McLaren and the FIA is all finished with, and that McLaren do not possess any Ferrari information still?
I think that we already declared even officially that everything is over for us. I mean, FIA decided what is the right thing to do, and we agreed with them. So we are just looking for the future and winning this championship, and maybe also the other coming.
Okay, well, talking about the championship and this qualifying session coming up, looking good at the moment.
Yeah, we're looking in a pretty good shape. We did our job. Everything is as planned. Is something really coherent with what we saw during the last tests here in Barcelona. So we think that it will be a tough weekend, but we think we are where we should be.
Okay. Mario, thank you very much. Back to you, Steve.
Thank you.
And Ferrari clearly feel that Spygate is all over, but do you think, Mark, that the scrutiny of the FIA is having any effect on the way McLaren are performing this season?
I don't think at the moment it's having any effect on them. I think it had more effect in the off-season and maybe the back end of last season, and that's been a problem for them because they've had to live with that and come into 2008 with the kind of package they have. McLaren are a massive organisation. I think they've got plenty of people to deal with the issues, what need to be dealt with, and plenty of people to deal with all the problems they've got in their race car and trying to get it faster on the track. And there's nothing to say anything different at the moment.
Martin Whitmarsh blames set-up problems for what happened in Bahrain and Malaysia. There can be no excuse for set-up problems here in Barcelona, presumably.
Not really, but I mean, this is pretty much a home circuit for every team and every driver. They do so many miles around here in the winter. It's probably the #1 testing circuit. Every one of these teams should have enough data to come here with a decent setup on board.
And what about Lewis? Over the last 3 weeks, he'd have been reflecting on what happened in Bahrain. He needs to improve his concentration at the start, that's clear. But what about accusations that he's starting to overdrive and push the car a little bit too far?
I think overdriving is a situation he was in because the car was damaged, and of course he's trying to make up performance and trying to do it from inside the cockpit, and it always doesn't work like that. You try as best you can, you try and do a little bit deeper in braking, you don't have the efficiency in the car, consequently you come out the corner a little bit squirrely. It's one of those issues you've got to deal with, and unfortunately he just didn't have the package on the day.
So Lewis and McLaren with problems to overcome, but they're nothing compared to the problems of his former teammate and great rival, because the Circuit de Catalunya is the home circuit for the double world champion Fernando Alonso, and Barcelona race weekend used to be like Nou Camp on match night, the place packed out in a noisy celebration of their hero. But now Alonso is struggling on his return to Renault. Ticket sales are reported to be down for tomorrow's race. So can he and the team fight their way back? Louise Goodman reports.
Fernando Alonso and Renault know all about winning. 15 race victories and 2 world championships have cemented the Spaniard's place in the team's affections. After a year apart, Alonso was welcomed back to Renault with open arms, but a mediocre car has led to a fruitless union and disappointment for the team, its 2 drivers and their legion of loyal supporters.
even if we always hope the best, they know that the points are the normal target, the podium a dream, and the victory nearly impossible.
We're not winning races, it's what we like doing, it's what we're here for.
You can see by Fernando, he's struggling to score points.
Alonso and Renault were expected to bounce back to the top together this season, but the R28 lacks aerodynamic efficiency and stability. How could a team with such a proven track record get it so wrong? You actually stopped developing last year's car quite early on, specifically to focus on this year's car. You've almost taken a step backwards.
No, I wouldn't say that. It's true that we stopped early. It was the only way to make up, and had we not done that, we'd be further behind. I think what we did was we just simply didn't find enough time to get through everything that we needed to do to get the car back to its sort of competitiveness of a couple of years ago. The car's working well. It's reasonably easy to set up. It just lacks simple efficiency, and that's because of the amount of time we spent last year just getting on top of our problems. What we need now is we just need to get the aerodynamic efficiency up. We need to work a little bit on things like ride and suspension, as always, but it's just more hours in the day.
I don't think the car is bad, but there's cars that are much better. I think we don't have a setup problem with the car's not understeer oversteer. It's just we just need to get more downforce to brake later, to carry more speed into the corners, to have better traction, and just to make it quicker and quicker.
Some of those new ideas can be seen on the car for the first time this weekend.
Well, there are a lot of changes, a new engine cover, things like that, but a lot of work around the aerodynamics at the front, around the front wheel, around the brake areas, new barge boards, new front wing details, a lot of pretty visible aerodynamic parts.
But the big question is, how long will it take Renault to return to winning ways?
I think at the moment, really, our target is to pull ourselves out of this sort of huge midfield that we got this year. We just want to try and establish ourselves out of that in the first place and then go on the chase after the BMW, Ferrari, McLaren trio.
We know that we have a problem, we know that we have to improve, and we know that in some areas we are weak. So it's just a matter of being a little bit clever than the other teams and improve in those areas.
The car is lacking efficiency, Mark. That's not Formula One double speed for the car is no good.
It's very close to that. It's basically it's a situation where Renault have not quite got the wherewithal to be at the front of the grid at the moment, but they've been there, they've won World Championships, they've got a World Championship driver back at home with them. I think he feels a lot more at home in the environment with being here with Renault. And for sure, I think they can get back to the front, but it'll take time. And, 2009's coming up, new regulations. Maybe Renault have already decided to concentrate on that.
And the car also seems to be quite a bit down on power, doesn't it?
It seems a little bit down on power. Yeah, Renault was the engine to have about 3 years ago, but of course things have changed, progress has been made. But don't underestimate them. Clever people here, great driving package, and I think they could get a result even this weekend.
There was a thought for Fernando Alonso, if things didn't work out here at Renault, he might be heading to Ferrari next season. Ferrari say, no, that's not going to happen. Is Alonso in danger of losing his way a bit?
I don't think so. He's a world-class driver. He already has the credentials. Everybody knows that. It's just having the right opening and the right environment to take him on board.
OK, well, maybe the Spanish crowd can lift him here again at the Barcelona circuit. Let's tell you a little bit more about this circuit, the Catalunya, which is hosting the Spanish Grand Prix for the 18th time. We're about 15 miles from the centre of Barcelona itself. And it's a circuit that puts the emphasis on aerodynamics and tyre wear as well. Here's Martin Brundle with all the details on the circuit de Catalunya.
Delighted to say we're joined for our track guide this week by local hero and McLaren test driver Pedro de la Rosa. Pedro, welcome to our show. Now, you must have done more kilometres around this racetrack than any other man on earth as McLaren's test driver. Tell us the secrets of this place.
It's a difficult track, very demanding aerodynamically and on the engine side, suspension. You really need a very strong front end here. There's very long corners. Front graining is always an issue here. We tend to run with the hardest compounds they are available to us, and that's mainly because of the nature of the long high-speed corners where you load the front tyre for a long time.
So you want the front end to really get into those corners nice and early. Take us through turns 1 and 2 here. What are the challenges of this first section?
Well, this obviously you have to brake as late as you can. You cannot touch the curbs on the first two corners at all. They have changed them over the past few years. They're very high, so if you put one wheel on top of them, the car gets very loose on the rear end. And it just try to carry, you know, the brakes and the entry speed as much as you can, downshift to third. And once you're on throttle, the really key here is try to do the second corner flat.
Now, I remember going through turn 3 flat out in the early 1990s with big fat slick tyres. Can you do that now? Is it, as you disappear out of this first chicane, can you get all the way through the long right-hander full throttle?
I've managed to be flat to turn 3.
This year?
Not this year, last year. But I must say that it just depends very much on the wind here. You know, if the wind is blowing, it's just you have a headwind on the main straight, and it's exactly helping you to hold the car through turn 3, you can go flat.
So, turn 7 and 8, significant changes for this year, Pedro.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, starts on the first the inside curb. It's much higher than last year, so you cannot cut across. And then on the exit, just where we are standing, it's the grass grid that you could run across. Now it's AstroTurf, which means that the moment you put one wheel here, you just lose all the traction coming out.
Even on a dry track?
Yes, it acts like if it was a wet track, you know, and you just have to stay away from this slippery bit.
Okay, so you're doing over 100 miles an hour through the exit already, climbing the hill towards turn 9 and Campsa. It's a tricky corner, isn't it?
It will always be. It's a blind corner. The exit is completely blind, and it's nowadays you just arrive in 5th gear. You just touch a little bit the limiter, back off a little bit throttle, no brakes, and throw the car in with gas, but without knowing where the exit curve will be.
Okay, Pedro, thank you for bringing us up to speed on the latest changes at this circuit and for your insight.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Yeah, I'm down here with Jorge Lorenzo, who's having huge success in MotoGP at the moment. 3 pole positions, 1 victory, and it's only his first season. Now, the Spanish have always loved their bike racing. They must be loving your success.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, these results, the 3 pole position, 3 podiums, for us is unbelievable. We couldn't ask for anything more. And now we have to enjoy all the moments we are getting and to try to learn more.
Now, obviously, our Spanish Formula 1 star, Fernando Alonso, hasn't been having such success. What do you think of his season so far?
Well, I'm sorry for the British people because they are with Lewis, but I'm with Fernando, of course, because he's a Spanish and I think he's a good guy.
You think it's a good idea for him to go back to Renault because they haven't had brilliant results so far, have they, this year?
I don't know. I don't know all the things in the mind of Fernando. I don't know. But anyway, McLaren is a splendid team, no? Always in the history, McLaren and Ferrari has been the two big potential of the F1.
Nice to talk to you. Have a good time.
Thank you very much.
Well, the bike racers have no problems getting past on this circuit. From an F1 point of view, it has got problems overtaking, hasn't it? It's not the easiest track in the world to overtake on, but again, there are a couple of places. But I think you've got this big long straight here was always a bonus for the guys. They come off the last corner, get a slipstream and try and tuck into turn 1. We've seen it done before, and I'm sure you'll see it done during the race. So much familiarity with the circuit, so much testing work has gone on here. Does that mean that qualifying today is going to be especially close? Well, you know, we looked at the times earlier, Steve, and it's a really mixed bag at the moment. I'm a little bit confused actually as to who looks quick and who doesn't. Some teams, Raikkonen with Ferrari was definitely sandbagging. You can see him putting up quick sectors and then backing off and not completing a whole lap time. You've got people like David Coulthard in the Red Bull car, second or third quickest. We haven't seen that for a while.
So maybe the development work is still going on right up until the last minute. It's been 3 weeks, of course, since the last Grand Prix in Bahrain. Plenty of time for the teams to work on their new parts and their new setups. And Ted Kravitz can take us through some of the principal changes.
Given that all the cars have been away in Australia, Malaysia and Bahrain since early March, this week has been the first chance for the teams to bolt on anything they've thought of or copied since the start of the season. The only genuinely new, big aerodynamic idea comes from Ferrari, who debut a new nose cone that has a stream of air coming out the top, fed from this intake duct on the underside.
The vent through the front of the nose, as Ferrari have done here at Barcelona, is most likely done for 2 reasons. One is to be able to run a higher front wing flap angle underneath the nose, because the front flap will stay attached for longer, because rather than the air coming up and having to negotiate its way around the underside of the nose, it goes straight through it. And the second advantage is potentially reduced upper body surface lift. When you run air very quickly over the upper surface of the bodywork, it pulls the car up basically, so it reduces lift in that small area as well.
A very noticeable trend is the big fin on the engine cover. This was originally Red Bull's concept, but has been copied by Renault. Surely teams don't just go around pinching rivals' ideas.
Of course they do. That's absolutely happens. You know, all the teams are having a look around and more. Let me tell you, that's what they do.
Do you have any shame in copying good stuff from other people's cars?
That was part of the business. I would say that the important thing is to understand it. But that's why we have CFD, computational fluid dynamics. That's why we have vehicle dynamicists. But you always need to look at everyone else's car, because in the pit lane there's 11 wind tunnel programs, and if you don't look at someone else's car, you're ignoring the output of 10 other wind tunnel programs, which would be pretty ignorant, to be honest. So it's always going to be a combination of ideas from inside and ideas from out.
Another popular addition are these vertical turning vanes just in front of the side pod air intakes. Pioneered by BMW, it's taken 6 weeks for Toyota and Red Bull to design, test and manufacture their own very similar versions.
Basically, they direct the air around the side pod, and then we have a better airflow for the rear wing and for the diffuser.
Ferrari have had these front wheel covers for over a year now, but it's just this weekend they've appeared on the Renault and on the Honda, who are never ones to miss out on a good marketing opportunity.
With these wheel covers, the airflow around the tyre is more guided, and it's the same basically. The rear of the car is benefiting from these components, not the front.
And the prize for the silliest looking new aero bit goes to Honda Racing for these nose fins. Nicknamed Dumbo wings, they run the risk of being banned on aesthetic grounds. But in the world of F1 aerodynamics, if it makes the car go quicker, there's no such thing as ugly. For these guys, true beauty is a 10th per lap. And if it gains you anything near that, it goes on the car.
And live here at Red Bull, I'm with Adrian Newey. Adrian, have you had the chance to walk up and down the pit lane, decide what's working and what's not?
Well, there's certainly lots of changes here. I mean, I have to admit, I haven't had a chance to walk along the pit lane. We were quite busy last night. But all the teams have done their usual pre-European season updates. I think everybody's established pretty much the same formula now. They released the cars in early January with a kind of the release bodywork. Then they'll have a big update just before the first race, and then a further update before the first European. So
a lot of work to get ready for Europe, but also a lot of work in terms of developing the car for the new changes next season. Where does the cut-off lie?
It's a very difficult one. I mean, we're in this juggling act, as are all teams, where we've got very big regulation changes for next year that we need to start researching very early, but at the same time we obviously don't want to turn our back on this season, so it's a difficult workload to manage both at the same time.
OK, Adrian, thanks very much. Let's hope you got it right. We'll see you this weekend.
Thank you, Steve.
Adrian Newey, let's go down the pit lane. I think Louise is with a reigning British motorsport world champion.
Yeah, 3 times world touring car champion Andy Priaulx, 3 times with BMW. Now the Formula 1 team's looking pretty good as well. They've got a way to go to emulate your success, but having a great season, aren't they?
Yeah, they started brilliantly. The car's very, very quick this morning in free practice 3, so I'm hoping that they're going to qualify really well this afternoon.
How well do you think they're going to do here? Can Nick get pole?
I think it's going to be tough for pole, but it's possible. They're very radical with the car at the beginning of the year. They seem to be getting the setup right now, but I think probably pole position's a tough one, but, you know, let's hope.
How's things going for you this year? You're going to make it 4 in a row in their world touring cars?
I'm never that confident at the start of the season. It's very, very tough, and to be honest, at the moment we're a little bit on the back foot, but we're not going to give up. The last 4 championships have gone to the last race, so we're going to fight to the very end.
Cheers, Andy.
Thank you.
Well, everyone here has their goals and their targets on this Spanish Grand Prix weekend. The sport's newest team, Force India, they're looking for more encouraging performance. Super Aguri desperately seeking finance. We'll have news of both after the break, plus the ITV F1 competition, and then it'll be live qualifying here in Barcelona. Warm temperatures, good conditions. The new Formula 1 season arrives in Europe amid great anticipation. And this qualifying session for the Spanish Grand Prix will be the first competitive appearance in Europe for the new Force India lineup. They've made a promising start to the season. Giancarlo Fisichella is threatening the top 10. But as Louise Goodman reports, Force India is merely the latest incarnation of a pretty familiar team that began as Jordan.
Jordan Grand Prix was a pretty successful team. Eddie's boys took 4 victories in Jordan's 14-year history. Only Ferrari, McLaren and Williams have won more races in the past 30 years. The team finished 3rd in the Constructors' World Championship in 1999, but in the noughties, a lack of cash led to a downturn in fortunes. At the end of 2004, Jordan was sold to the Russian Midland Group. By 2006, it was Dutch car firm Spygate whose name appeared above the door. What didn't change, though, was the lack of results. But the tail-end Charlies have really sharpened up their act since they were bought by Indian entrepreneur Vijay Mallya. And it's not just this flashy new motorhome that's making them look the part either. Force India is starting to do the business out on track this season too.
The team's had several difficult years with different owners. And now we've got a sort of flamboyant new chairman and owner in Vijay Mallya. And solid basis in terms of finances, and we're able to start doing things properly. And I think you've seen that both on the track and now here in the paddock, new motorhome, experienced drivers. And the good thing is we've now got 3 wind tunnels running. We've got 10 times the wind tunnel capacity we had this time last year. We've improved on average about 2 seconds a lap compared to this time last year, whereas if you look at the average from all the teams, it's under half a second. So we've clearly made a step compared to everyone else.
It's quite surprising for us to be much closer than what we expect compared them. Like example, last race I was with the same pace to Renault, to Barrichello, just a bit slower than somebody else, quicker than Hamilton, but maybe he had a problem on his car. So it's quite encouraging, yeah.
Fisichella's input extends way beyond his racecraft, though. His technical input has been a significant factor right from his very first test.
Giancarlo was able to pick up some things that we needed to change, but also some things that we didn't need to put the effort in that he thought were quite good. And so it gave us as engineers a lot of focus in what we needed to do, and that's because of his experience.
His teammate has less mileage under his belt, and Adrian Sutil struggled to make an impression so far this season, but Gascoigne's keeping faith with the youngster.
He's got a lot of talent, he's proved that in the past, and he's got a really good yardstick to judge himself against. So he's got to go and beat Giancarlo. So you can look at it one way, that it's a negative, that he's under pressure, or you can take it as a positive. If he gets on with his job and beats him, then he's going to have a long career in Formula One.
Last year it was not so much pressure because you knew already you have no chance to race other cars. You are on the back on the grid and you just try to do your best job and finish the race. But now everything counts. Every single tenth is maybe one position. So this is a real chance for us and a real a real race.
If we get everything right, we can get into Q2. And as Giancarlo proved last race, you race where you qualify. If we can be up there near the top 10, we can race there.
Well, Antonio Liuzzi is Force India's test driver this season. We've just been hearing from Mike Gascoigne that getting into Q2 really is the holy grail for the team at the moment. What chance of doing it here in Barcelona?
We are always really close. It's hundredth of a second, so hopefully today Giancarlo or Adrian, they can make a spot on qualifying and we can get into this Q2. It's 3 races, we've been so close, and our car development is going always forward, but we're always nearly there. Hopefully here Barcelona will happen.
All of the teams are restricted in the amount of testing that they could do this year, so how much of a contribution are you able to make?
At the moment quite a lot, because the team is giving me a lot of chance to test. We are always sharing every 3 days, 1 day each of the drivers, so I'm giving a lot of feedback to the team, and I think the team is doing a great job because we are performing better and better every time. So I think the experience of me and Giancarlo is helping them to go forward, and they are working really, really hard, so that's really promising.
Thanks, Tonio.
Thanks you.
Q2 is the ambition then, but how close do you feel Force India are, especially with the resources at their disposal, of making it into the top 10, Q3?
I think they're getting very close to it. Interesting to hear that Mike Gascoigne says they've got 3 wind tunnel programmes on the go. That's significant. I don't think they've ever had that since it was Jordan in its first guise. But I think Force India have done a great job this season. Fisichella's doing a super job for all the experience. Adrian Sutil, yes, he's got to match Fisichella and in many ways beat him. And if he does, like Mike Gascoigne said, he's going to have some longevity in Formula One. If he doesn't, big question marks above his head at the end of this season.
Well, Force India can certainly look forward to a solid future and a solid financial future as well. The same can't really be said of Super Aguri, Anthony Davidson's team. They're here, they're racing. It's all very quiet and low-key around the Super Aguri Aguri setup, because just recently they lost their last financial rescue package. That fell apart apparently, and their future now in Formula One is hanging by an absolute thread. And Ted is with Aguri Suzuki right now.
Indeed, Steve, and that deal was with Dubai Investment Capital, the people who are looking at Liverpool at the moment. Aguri, what's the situation now?
Yeah, okay, it's quite difficult in this situation, but because everybody knows the Formula One is very difficult. I understand, but anyway, so I'm on in this team, and I have to find some good way or good partner, etc. But it's okay now.
So it's okay for this race, but how quickly do you need to find somebody? Will you be in Turkey? Will you be able to race in Turkey the next race?
Yeah, it's very important point in between this race and in Turkey, but it's now is our staff and everybody is trying very hard. But okay, I try to find some good way in before the Turkey.
So if you don't find somebody before Turkey, will you be at the Turkish Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time?
Yeah, but I don't know. I can say it's now, but anyway, it's now. It's very good in positive side coming now. Yeah.
So there are good prospects. There are people interested.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, that's good, because there are a lot of people in Leafield who do a great job for your team, and they can feel positive about the future. You're saying?
Yes, yeah. Because this is my job. I try to find it a good way. Yeah.
Okay, great. And just quickly on Honda, you're getting the support from Honda that you need?
Yeah, it's always in the Honda and supporting my team. I don't know. It's in Japanese side. Is Honda head office people is always in helping my team.
Okay, great. We hope for the best. Thank you very much, Aguri.
Thank you.
And that Honda support, that continued Honda support, is really what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, the team was set up around Sato to make sure he had a drive. Aguri Suzuki there, a former F1 driver, it's been big steps for him to put his own team together, and now he's in a little bit of trouble because he needs some secure finance to see the future of this team flourish. But I think they'll do it. I'd be surprised if they're not around for the long haul, but it'd be a great shame to lose them.
Difficult, uncertain times for Anthony Davidson.
Yeah, very difficult for Anthony. He's having to drive with that cloud over his head, not knowing whether the next race is possible or not. But at the end of all of it, you know, this is a big business, and I think there'll be several people out there who are quite interested to take a Formula One team on.
OK, qualifying is coming up. Before that, let's remind you of the ITV F1 website, and that's where you can get a whole lot of extra information on background, stats. You can also get highlights, clips of all 3 days of each race meeting, and the Fantasy Formula One competition as well. That's all on the website. And talking of competitions, here are details of the ITV F1 version.
Here's the results of our last competition. We asked you what the official language of Monaco was, and congratulations Robert Baldwin from North London, who knew it was French and who will join us in Monte Carlo in 4 weeks' time. This week we're offering you the chance to win a trip to the French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours on the 22nd of June. You and a friend will have grandstand tickets for Friday practice, qualifying on Saturday, and the thrilling race on Sunday. You'll also have return ferry crossings from Dover to Calais included, courtesy of Sea France, hotel accommodation near the circuit, parking at the racetrack, and 2 Kangaroo TV units to keep you fully up to speed with all the action on the track. So to be in with a chance of winning, courtesy of the Grand Prix de France, just answer this question correctly. Who is the only Frenchman to have won the F1 Drivers' World Championship? Is it A, Olivier Panis, B, Alain Prost, or C, Sébastien Bourdais? To enter, call 0901 293 2020. Calls cost £1 from BT Landline. Calls from other networks may be higher, and from mobiles will be considerably more. Or text the word F1 plus your answer of A, B or C to 63337. Text costs £1 plus 1 standard network rate reply message. Digital satellite and cable viewers can enter by pressing their red button now. You can also enter for free at itv.com. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close 5 p.m. Tuesday 29th of April. Entries made after the closing time will not be counted, but may still be charged. Good luck.
And we'll have another look at the competition for you and the copious details that accompany it in our race build-up tomorrow. But now, huge crowds here at the Circuit de Catalunya. We're concentrating on the potential shape of this Spanish Grand Prix grid. And Mark, what exactly is the prestige involved in getting pole position here in Barcelona?
Pole position for any Grand Prix is special, and it's also guaranteed that you've got half a chance getting into the first corner first, which it's all about. But I think this is the kind of thing that the atmosphere here is great. We've seen this build up over the years. We used to come to Barcelona, Steve, and hardly anybody would be at the circuit. Now we've got Fernando Alonso. The place is just filled up. It's if they can see Alonso produce something special today, then that would be a great thing for them.
And you get the sense, though, from within the Renault ranks, that will be somewhat miraculous if he got anywhere near the podium.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of enthusiasm there to take it forward, but I'm not so sure it's got the performance that's needed to get in that first couple of rows. But you've seen Alonso and Renault pressing hard so far this weekend, and they've definitely been stronger, but I don't think, as you say, quite strong enough.
Okay, so the potential shape of this Spanish Grand Prix grid, it'll all be decided in the course of the next and somewhat dramatic hour it promises to be. It's live coverage of qualifying coming up next. After Melbourne, Kuala Lumpur and Bahrain, the Formula One season arrives in Europe. Qualifying for the Spanish Grand Prix here in Barcelona, that'll give us a much clearer idea of the season that lies ahead. It might continue to be a tough one for Fernando Alonso. But Mark, what do you think we will see from Lewis Hamilton this weekend after the disappointment at Bahrain?
I think you're going to see a lot more focus. He did make a couple of little errors there, but at the same point he had a car what wasn't quite 100%. But Lewis needs to put his World Championship title back in contention, and that's what we all want to see.
Well, spirits certainly look pretty good there within McLaren ranks. What's it like within Honda? Nick Fry is with Louise.
Nick, how are things looking at Honda this weekend? Jensen was in pretty good shape this morning.
Yeah, pretty good. Jensen, I think, was 8th fastest this morning, and hopefully we can get either him or Rubens, or hopefully both, into the top 10.
How realistic is that?
I think one of them's realistic. I think we managed it in Bahrain. The issue we've got at the moment is the midfield is so bunched up that if one of them gets in, or they have a tendency to knock each other out at the position we're at the moment. So I think one's realistic, two might be a stretch.
Things are looking a lot better than they are for your sister team, Super Aguri, another part of the Honda family. What are your thoughts on the problems they're going through at the moment?
Well, yeah, we're very disappointed that the investor that was going to invest in Super Aguri pulled out. So now we're looking for somebody else. So it's tough at the moment with the financial markets as they are. Getting someone to invest in Formula One is difficult, but we're trying our hardest.
Thanks, Nick.
Right, the European season starts here. Qualifying for the Spanish Grand Prix is described by Martin Brundle and James Allen.